It is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness.
This is Basil Rathbone to help present the Christopher program. And now here is Father Keller.
Well, Basil, it's always good to have you on the Christopher program.
It's good to be back, Father. I've been away so much, and I regret that in other years, well, if it is the last couple, I haven't been with you.
Well, we've limped along.
Oh, no, you haven't. You've done some glorious work, and I've read your books, and I know what's going on.
Well, we're especially delighted to have you on this program because you've been all over the country, and as you were telling me before, and I hope you'll tell our audience now, your impressions of the young people.
Yes, I feel it very strongly. I've been really hoping that the opportunity to say something about the young people of this country might come up, and I can't think of a better place to say what one would like to say than on the Christopher program. Because we do have, let me say that years ago, a very close friend of mine in the newspaper field, we were talking about the kind of headlines that appeared in the newspapers, and I was complaining, then I was in Hollywood at the time, and I was complaining of the kind of publicity that the Hollywood people received. And I said, after all, you must remember that for every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these headline pieces of bad news, we have literally thousands, if not more, hundreds of thousands perhaps, of people who live happily married lives. And he stopped me after a while and said, my dear Basil, don't you realize that in my business, meaning his newspaper business, the only good news is bad news. Now, that's very cynical, Father, I realize. But on the other hand, I thought it through, and I realized that it had a great deal of truth to it. Now, the thing that has concerned me particularly is what we in the large cities in the United States, I think, are perhaps more conscious of what is known as the delinquent child. There are good reasons we know, there are many reasons that we know of why this situation exists. But when you travel throughout this great country into smaller communities, when you're not in Cleveland or Detroit or San Francisco or Los Angeles or Cincinnati or New York, you meet a very great number of extraordinary young people in colleges, high schools, universities. I've been enormously impressed by them, and I have had them speak to me on this very subject, that they resent intensely this inference that the young people of America are all alike. Because unfortunately, in reading one's papers, one is inclined to lump them all into one category.
Generalize from just a few.
Just as I always wish so strongly to defend the people of my own profession, because somebody hears about so-and-so doing this or so-and-so doing that, and any one person, Father, you know this as well as I do.
That's right.
Any one person's responsibility, particularly in a, what should we say, an advantageous spot, or should we say, who's in the public eye, the influence of that one person on his own profession or his own group is tremendous. A lot of people feel that the theater is a very dissolute place because certain people have indicated by their bad behavior that it might be so. And you and I know that it is not so. If you lived, as I did during the entire war, out on the coast, there were hundreds and thousands, indeed, of people working in studios who did not have broken marriages, who did have happy families. These people never get mentioned. There's no such thing as a column which says, isn't it interesting to note that 98% of the people in this community are happily married and have children? No, that's not news. It's only news that 2% are miserable. And the young people of this country are feeling very strongly. I'm not speaking now of just an odd one here and there. And, Father, it was deeply gratifying, if I may go gabbing on.
Good.
When I played in a play of Archibald MacLeish's called J.B., it was generally thought that this play would appeal to the adult rather than to the younger people.
It was on the Book of Job.
It was based, you can hardly, yes, I think you might say that Archibald MacLeish took the Book of Job and endeavored to see if he could not, and did to some extent, give us an idea of what might happen to Job in the 1960s. But the people that came backstage, the people who one was most interested in meeting and talking to, were young people. And these young people would often come into a dressing room and stand there, and before they could speak, they burst into tears. The young people come, they're emotionally disturbed. Now, Father, you may like to pick up here, because I've talked too much, But I do think that the emotional disturbance is because they have, very probably, wanted terribly to find something to satisfy their spiritual lives. And they are not altogether finding it. And when they come to see a play like J.B., or when they hear some very beautiful Shakespeare, or some of the great poems of all time, something touches them emotionally, spiritually, not just physically.
Yes.
The emotional reaction comes from the physical disturbance. They want something more than they're getting.
That's right. Yeah,
Now,
that's right.
whether it's from the home or whether it's from their own church, I don't know.
Well, it's from every place. They should be getting, and above all, we feel, particularly from our experience, they're longing for to do something. They want to be constructive. They're idealists. They don't want to tear down. Some of them do, but I think it's purely by accident. I've often said that if you took a young person and gave him a bat and sent him through a room, knocking things down, knocking chandeliers and windows out, and everything, well, there might be a little, excitement about it for a couple of hours. But if you put a young person at that for hour after hour, day after day, week after week, for years, they go crazy because they're made to build. That's the way God made them, not to